Hello, welcome back to another fun episode of the She Ascends Circle Lounge. It's Danielle here with Bahati and Kay, and we are in our final segment of our Women's Health series that we've been doing for the past 3 months. And this is our Sex Health Pleasure Principles segment. Today getting into hormones, menopause, and changes through the seasons of life as you become seasoned. See what I did there? See? Anyway. Uh, so we're going to focus today on how hormonal changes affect the libido, comfort, mood, energy, and intimacy throughout these different stages of life. So, ladies, what's one thing that you wish more women understood about hormonal changes and their impact on sexual health? Not Freaknik.
Yeah, I always wondered about this, but now that I'm where I can say this. Like, as someone who's 51, who's still fairly active sexually in a happy relationship, a healthy relationship, like, it is still very pleasurable for us, but it is not as frequent for us. And so now that we're in our 50s, I'm like, well, what would that look like in our 60s and our 70s? Do you still have sex when you're like 70, 80? And yes, people do. And I found that so
Like the hell
fascinating.
yes.
Get it, Apple, get it. But when I was younger, I was like, I don't know what this will look like when I'm 50, right? Because I was
Yeah,
very active, right? Like it was very frequent. But
right.
now the frequency slows down, but the intimacy and the passion is still there. And so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
it's natural.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to add to what Kay was saying because she started out talking about like our body shifts physically, right?
Yeah.
And we can't do the things we used to do. We're not as flexible and limber and quick and tricks and things like that. But
Yeah.
I watched this series and I have to tell you, it really shifted a lot of things for me and it validated
We just
a
lost.
lot of the things that I was experiencing with some of the physical pains that I'm experiencing in my age. And the show was called Dying for Sex. And
Hmm.
it's a show about a woman who, spoiler alert, but it's worth watching. It's based on a true story of a woman who is diagnosed with terminal cancer
Yep.
and her body starts changing and she wants to explore her sexuality before she leaves the planet. And so she has these interesting dynamic experiences while she's going through chemo and all of that. And it was just so enlightening to watch her journey, even though it was, being scripted. But there was this one particular um, episode where she was experiencing just physical touch as a sex act. And I thought it was so beautiful. And I was like, even as our bodies change and things start creaking and cracking, we get older and like again, we can't be as flexible and limber as we used to. There are still other ways to meet your desired needs and receive pleasure. And I think that that's the other thing I want people to know, especially young women and men who are watching this, is that as we age, the desires don't go away, but you have to be able to maneuver and figure out new things where you're not harming your body, but you're still experiencing the pleasure.
Yeah. So, all right. So I'm chiming all in on this because I've got a lot of things
Go in, girl.
in these couple of minutes here. It might be TMI. I don't care. That's what we do here. So I I I had a hysterectomy very early. I was like 2 months outside of my 31st birthday because of very severe endometriosis. This was before, we're talking 20 plus years ago where you didn't hear about that as much as you do now. And so didn't know that I had it until I went to get actually because I had decided, my son had gotten to a certain age. I'm like, I'm not having more kids. So I went in to get the tubal obligation. And that's when my doctor says, well, we may not have had to do this because you've got endometriosis. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And he explained it to me, and I'm like, that's why, like, so I had these pain and didn't have no idea. I thought it had something to do with like digestion, because like we talked about in the gut series, I always had issues with, going and things like that as a kid and being plugged up and all this stuff. And I just thought it just all had to do with that. Didn't know one thing from the other. And so initially he wanted to take everything because he said it could come back because of the scarring, and it does. I did have like my doctor called it clean the cobwebs out like a few years after that, but
I hope they didn't say that for real.
he did.
Okay, we're gonna put a pin, or not
Yeah,
even, we're gonna
where's the
pop this
cobwebs out?
bubble. I'm
um
gonna pop this bubble real quick. I don't think men should be gynecologists. I
Yeah,
said what I said.
I get it. And these were two different ones. This was the doctor I had later on in Virginia, but he was very quirky and I mean, I didn't take offense to it because of I knew how his personality was.
Mm.
But my doctor who did the surgery in Ohio knew that I had concerns about going through menopause early if everything was taken out. So he left an ovary in to see how long that was going to trudge along. And so I did good with just having just that one. And it chugged along and chugged along and did what it needed to do for about 7 years. And so this fast forward, I was in, Virginia by that time. And then it was just I was started having so much pain, and it's like if my bladder was full, like when I would have to pee, it would hurt so bad. And I was like, I can't, something's going on. Fast forward, I check out, they're like, yep, you got a cyst on that ovary. All that endometriosis stuff was on there still. It had to come out. So about 2 days after my surgery, no lie, first hot flash, bam, like that quickly, because that was the last thing I had was that one ovary. And so I still kind of dealt with it for a while. I just kind of got used to the flashes, I didn't get on anything at first because you hear all this talk about, oh, you don't want to do this because it might cause this, you don't want to do. And then it got to the point that I started dating the person I'm still with now, 16 years later.
Well,
And
no.
I guess I was like, he would come over to visit, and apparently my place would be freezing, and he's like, or I'd go to his place, and I'm just like, I was hot, I was having my flashes and night sweats, and I'm burning up. And he was like, okay, I think maybe you need to go talk to somebody about getting some hormones. He was like, because you're killing me. I'm like, I'm sorry, so but the desire never went away. It was mostly the hot flashes. Like,
Yeah.
fortunately, because I was young when it first happened, and around the time when I met him, I was a little later in my 30s, and well, I was 40 when we started dating. But, I still wasn't experiencing a lot of the things that come along with it at that time. Like, I didn't have like the discomfort and the dryness and things like that, which I was kind of shocked. But maybe because once I started taking the hormone replacement, it kind of leveled things out. And I did that for years. But then once I got 50 and over, it didn't matter if I was still taking the hormone replacement. That's when I started noticing the normal, I guess I'll say in air quotes, changes in my body when it came to sex. And it was so frustrating because he's 3 years older than I am, and I had told him he pooped himself out too. He's gonna kill me if he watches it. But things change for men and women,
Yes,
so you have to try to see what you can do and what works. I
exactly.
did
It
try.
doesn't have to end. It just has to be modified.
I did go and get a rejuvenator. I did this Mona Lisa
Good.
thing that was offered at the doctor's office. It wasn't paid by insurance. I would really like to do it again, but I don't know how much it probably costs now, because back then I think it was about $1,500 for, I forgot how many sessions, or $1,800 for so many sessions. But there was something to that. But there's more things now, and so I just, you do what you can and try what you can to make that work. And so it is possible. So you young ladies out there, this is what the hell you have to look forward to. This shit
Mhm.
sucks, but you can still figure it out.
And
And
they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with it, but it's
no,
natural progression, right? Like I like to advocate on the side of we are going through a transformation. If
yeah,
you see indigenous cultures, they look at the woman in this age and stage of life as the wisdom keeper, the oracle, the shaman, like the priestess. Like they revere women who are getting older because they're more seasoned with life and they have more life advice to give. The one thing I do want to say to the audience, though, from someone who's been in a very healthy relationship with my partner, with my husband for over 30 years, is that we have learned not to shame each other
yeah,
when the other one isn't ready, when the other one can't perform, when the timing
right,
is off, right? Like
right,
again, pleasure principle. There are ways to take care of your needs without stepping outside of the marriage, right? If you explore
yes,
yourself and learn what your needs are, you can manage that. But we have learned to be patient with each other when he's ready and I'm not, and when I'm ready, he's not. It's just like, hey, it's not aligned right now, but no pressure to you, right? Like, I understand because this is part of the aging process. Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Especially if your love language is physical touch.
It's that then that's me. That is
Right.
me. Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, we could keep going on. But we're gonna get into this in 2 weeks. Our last segment is gonna be the fun one when we talk about this kind of stuff. But if there's any males that are watching, I just want to point out that it's gonna change for you too, if it hasn't already, depending on your age. But don't be in denial about it. Like, just own it. Own it. Own it and do something about it. Like, that's all I'm saying. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now and we'll save that for our last a week on this segment. But thank you, ladies. It's been real. Um, I just want to have a final takeaway to everybody that women's bodies they naturally change over time, and understanding those changes creates confidence rather than fear. So don't be afraid. It happens to the best of us because you got three of the best on this podcast right now, and it happens to all of us. So, but we work it out. So anyway, join us next week again. We will continue our pleasure principles, our segment on sexual health. Danielle with Kay and Bahati, and whatever's good for your soul, do that.